Hi. So for today's video, we will have examples about hypothesis testing using z-test. All right. Z-test, where your standard deviation is known, or when n is greater than or equal to 30. I do hope that you still remember that when doing z-test, you must consider the number or the population or the sample size. The sample size should be a minimum of 30. Otherwise, not, you will not do z-test if lesser than 30 siya. So, this is also used when the sample size n is greater than or equal to 30 by virtue of the central limit theorem. The z-test formula is given by z equals the difference between the sample mean minus the population mean over the the quotient of the standard deviation and the square root of n, where the symbol sigma is the standard deviation. We also have mu sub 0, that is your claimed population mean. We have x bar, that is the sample mean, and our small letter n is the sample size. The table is shown below with a given alternative hypothesis and the critical region for z-test for single sample mean. So ito siya. We have our null hypothesis, um, H sub O, or the null hypothesis, wherein you claim na equal lang ang imuhang there's no difference or there is no relationship between the two given data. Now, if ang imuhang alternative hypothesis, if your alternative hypothesis, you say that is your population mean, remember that mu is your population mean. Population mean is lesser than the sample mean, parang ganun siya. Kapag ganyan, your critical region is this. Kapag greater than, this is your critical region. Pag not equal to, this is your symbol. Alright, let's go. For the decision rule, if false, we fail to reject null hypothesis or the H sub O and conclude that there is no sufficient evidence to accept the alternative hypothesis, that is the H sub A. Pero kapag true ang imuhang decision, we reject null hypothesis, that is the H sub 0, and conclude that there is sufficient evidence to accept the alternative hypothesis. All right. Sige, let's have an example. Example number 1. An electrical firm manufactures light bulbs that have a length of life that is approximately normally distributed with a mean of 800 hours and a standard deviation of 40 hours. If a random sample of 30 bulbs has an average life of 788 hours, test the hypothesis that your population mean is equal to 800 hours against the alternative wherein you say that your population mean is not equal to 800 hours. Use alpha equals 0.04. So let's highlight the um, important numbers in here. Let's identify the given. We have the following given. Our mu is equal to 800. Our x bar is equal to 788. Lagyan natin ng unit, hours. Then we also have small letter n equals 30 bulbs. And then the standard deviation is equal to 40 hours. Also, we know that alpha is equal to 0.04. So now, proceed na tayo sa hypothesis testing. The solution, first step, remember that the first step, you are to identify your null hypothesis. Now, for your null hypothesis, you say your H sub 0 where population mean is equal to 800 Rs. Then for your alternative, you say your mean is not equal to 800 Rs. Now, paano ko na-identify na my alternative should be not equal to? Sinabi sa problem against the alternative of 800 Rs. Okay. Then our alpha, that is 0.04, and that is also given na sa problem. Now, if in case the problem or walay gimension nga alpha sa problem, then you are to use 0.05 degrees, no, 0.05 para, 0.05 kasi yan ang pinaka-common na ginagamit, pero it may vary kasi merong iba that they want to use 0.01, not 0.05. But for my class, I always remind them na if wala na ko nabutangan, just use 0.05. Fourth, you will do computations. Now, remember that our given, meron tayong standard deviation, and also we have n that is greater than 30, greater than or equal to 30. Therefore, we can use the z-test. Ayan. For the z-test, remember that this is the formula. This is the formula. And then by substitution, you have now 788 minus 800 all over 40 over the square root of 30. Now, by the way, in solving this one, if wala may calculator nga directly makasolve, you must solve the denominator by like this. 40 divided by square root of 30. Yan muna yung isa-solve nyo. Tapos, before ka mag-divide sa bigger, negative 2, ilan ba yan? 800 minus 788. So that is 212 over something di are. Okay. Now, for the fifth step, for the critical region, reject H sub O if the absolute value of Z is greater than Z sub 0.02. Now, question, ma'am, how are you able to identify that Z is 0.02? Going back to the critical region, balik tayo dito sa table. Oopsie. Ito, table. Diba, ang ating alternative hypothesis uses the symbol not equal to. And so, we are to use the critical region nga kani siya. So, ano mangyayari? You have absolute value of Z, computed nato na siya later, greater than the Z sub alpha. Ilan yung alpha natin? That is 0.04. You divide that 1 by 2, then you have now Z sub 0.02. Kaya, naging 0.02 na yung sub ng ating sa example na binigay ko. Saan ito? Okay. Critical region. Ayan. Now, for this one, you are to look for the value of Z sub 0.02 sa inyuhang Z table. I have provided a separate video for this one. Katong pangitaon ninyo ang value niya. So, kindly refer to that one if you are confused or if you forgot kung paano gawin. Sige. Let's go. Now, remember, sa fourth step natin, ang nasolve na value is negative 1.6432. Now, 1.6432, the absolute value of that one is 1.6432. then 1.6432 is greater than 2.05. Is that true or false? Of course, it is false. Then, for conclusion, we say, since 1.6432 greater than 2.05 is false, we fail to reject the null hypothesis, and there is insufficient or there is no sufficient evidence to conclude that the average length of life of a light bulb differs from 800 hours. So yun, parang ganyan lang. Alright. Example number 2. The average height of females in the senior class in a certain high school has been 172 centimeters. Is there a reason to believe that there has been a change in the average height which is greater than 172 centimeters? If 60 females in the present registered seniors has an average of 173.8 centimeters with their standard deviation of 4.9 centimeters, use alpha equals 0.05. Okay, identify muna natin ang mga given. Sige, given. The given are, we have given mu natin is 172 centimeters. We also have ano ba ba, 60, n equals 60. Then we have x bar or sample mean of 173.8 centimeters and standard deviation of 4.9 centimeters. We also have a given alpha of 0.05. Okay, now let me highlight this one for you. Which is greater than 172 centimeters. This is now your clue for your alternative hypothesis later on. So for our null hypothesis, we have mu is equal to 172 centimeters. Then for our alternative one is greater than 172. Now, paano kung gani nahimo na siyang greater than 172? Refer to the given problem, which is greater than 172 centimeters. So, given na siya sa problem. Next, the alpha is already given. Alpha is equal to 0.05. For the computations, we know that these are the given. And we can solve now for the z-test. Since pwede tayo mag z-test kasi nga the given is greater than 30. Okay. So upon solving z-test, we have now 2.8455. For the solution, the critical region, since our alternative is greater than, our critical region will look like this. Z is greater than Z sub 0.05. Now, upon looking sa Z table, Z sub 0.05 is equal to 1.645. Then we already solved for the value of Z or the computed Z, and that is 2.8455. So we have now the statement 2.8455 is greater than 1.645. Now, is that correct? Yes, that is true. So, for the conclusion, since 2.8455 is greater than 1.645 is true, we reject the null hypothesis and we say that there is sufficient evidence to conclude that the average height of females in the senior class in a certain high school is statistically greater than 172 centimeters. So, na-prove mo na yung average height, is greater than 172 centimeters. Alright, so that's it for today's video. Dalawa yung example na binigay ko. So I hope you understand it. And if you do not, comment down below or message me. Thank you so much and have a great day, everyone. Bye bye. Sayonara.